Okay, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a thrown plate with a foot. It's going to be a two-part video where one part of the video, or the first part of the video, is going to be throwing the plate on the wheel, and then once the plate sets up and is ready, I'm going to show you in the next video will be how to trim a foot on it. So some of the tools you're going to need for this video is the cutoff wire, which we've used on pretty much every video so far. I have my favorite ribs that I like to use. These are both what you would call a kidney shaped rib. This one is a metal one, really thin and springy, and this one is the soft red colored rib from Mud Tools, which I really like to use. One different tool here that I'm going to use is this long metal rib. Again, made of this kind of spring steel, but I like to use this one because it covers a lot of surface area when I'm moving back and forth onto the plate. And then I always like to have a needle tool on hand for various reasons. It's great for if in the wedging process, if I've ever missed a little bit of an air pocket, I could poke holes in that. It's good for me to check the thickness of my plate and all those other great things. Of course, the sponge, water bucket, and the cleanup sponge. So let's get started. Now plates, because they take up so much surface area and you're going to be trimming so much away, always make sure to have plenty of clay. So you're going to see this isn't going to be that big of a plate. It's going to be a standard, maybe like a sandwich plate, a little bit bigger than a dessert plate. And I'm using 4 pounds of clay. So a lot of that clay is going to get trimmed away in the next phase. So starting with the clay, I'm going to center and get started on the plate. Always make sure to go through this process, pulling your clay up and pushing it back down, kind of wedging it on the wheel. Once again, before I take my hands off the clay, I'm releasing pressure, releasing my hands. So for this part of the process, you can see I'm actually just going to be pressing it down and smoothing it out. One thing I want to try to avoid is on this edge here. I never want to see this edge fold over itself. Okay, so I don't want to just be putting pressure down and having it flatten out and fold over. So what I want to do is I always want to keep this edge, the bottom part of the edge, the widest part. So the part that's touching the wheel head to be the widest part. So when I'm putting pressure downwards, I'm also pushing pressure inwards and sort of pushing it out this way. Making sure my hands are nice and wet. And then I'm pressing down so you can see here that the bottom part of the clay is the widest part right here. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm pushing down from the middle with my right hand, and then my left hand is holding it in, keeping it steady so that it doesn't, this rim here doesn't fold over on top. So a plate, just like a bowl, I want to make sure that the center is the lowest part of the plate. So I've pretty much got my height here. You can see I have quite a bit more thickness on the rim still. I'm going to take my rib now and really compress this. So a plate, it's very important to compress, as with anything, but a plate is a little bit more accentuated because we're taking so much clay and moving it away from the center that the particles in the middle are going to tend to be a lot, like they're going to have that memory and they're going to want to split apart, and you're much more likely to get an S-crack in the next stage of the firing, or in the bisque stage of the firing, if you don't do this. So at this point, I'm really going to take some time, and I'm going to take that clay, I'm going to take my ribs starting from the outside, and I'm going to kind of gradually get in towards the middle, I'm just going to spend some time sort of compressing the clay on that plate. So I'm using my metal rib for this, but if you want, you can use your rubber rib. And you can see I'm going right up to the center. I'm never passing the center. I'm always going from the outside to the center. And then really keeping in mind that the center part here is going to be the lowest part of my plate. And depending on what kind of plate you want, you might want to have a little bit more curvature or it to be relatively flat. So I've compressed my plate now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger on the outside, I'm going to get under there and I'm going to take some of that excess clay and I'm going to pull it up and out. And that's where, that refers to the gallery of the plate. And so that's that sort of rim that you can embellish with slip or glaze or whatever you want to do with that. You can do lots of things with that. But I'm going to show you how to do that. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking my finger and I'm kind of going in under that rim. So I've just basically pressed my finger into the side and now I have something to grab onto and I'm going to pull that up and out. Bring that plate out a little bit. Make sure I got enough water. At this point I'm kind of throwing like I would a cylinder or anything else. And I'm pulling it until I get that rim, the thickness that I want. So at this stage, your wheel should really be going quite slow. And the reason for that is because the center, of course, is going to be moving a lot slower than the outside here. So centrifugal force is going to want to take that clay and sort of spread it out even more. So you really want to try to make sure that your wheel is going nice and slow at this stage. So now you can see here I got a little bit of a bump here. That's basically where my finger went into. And then it comes up and then in. So I want to try to smooth that out and make this transition really nice and smooth. I often like to use this rib as well, because this sort of takes a lot of surface area. And once again, just compressing it down. Chamois. Smooth out that rim. Remember, if you keep that rim nice and smooth, with no jagged edge or no sharp edge, it's going to be a lot less likely to chip as it's coming in and out of the sink or dishwasher or just stacked up along with other plates. There we go. So now, you'll notice when I started I had a bat on the wheel. And really important to have a bat on the wheel when you're dealing with plates because there's so much clay spread out, you would never be able to lift this off and be able to hold its shape. So I have a bat. I'm going to take my wire tool and I'm going to stretch it out and pass it underneath it. Then I'm going to take my bat off and move it over to the side. And I'm going to let this dry to the point where I'm going to be able to flip it over and trim it later. So I'm going to really wait till this is leather hard, let it dry nice and slowly, and then that way I'm going to be able to dry it off nice and evenly, and then flip it over and trim it later. Make sure that wire tool is flush on the bottom of the bat. Pulling that bat off and then moving this aside.